Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly chilling narrative from Thriller Teller. We're going to break down the anatomy of a perfect, terrifying trap. We aren't just going to recap a spooky story, though. We're looking at the exact mechanics of how psychological manipulation, everyday family dynamics, and just a hint of the supernatural all combine to lure someone right into the dark. So, get comfortable and let's unravel this thing together. You know that ultimate creepy campfire question? What happens when you look into an abandoned house and someone looks back? It's literally the core anxiety of our story today. It preys on that totally universal fear we all get when staring out a dark window at night. You expect to see empty space, right? Maybe some trees. But the absolute worst case scenario is making eye contact with something that definitely shouldn't be there. And as we're going to see, the true horror isn't just the thing in the window. It's the crazy sequence of events that one sight sets in motion. Okay, Section 1. The unwanted bedroom. Domestic dispute. Let's get into it. So, the nightmare actually kicks off with a completely ordinary domestic dispute. Our protagonist, Annie, and her family have finally snagged a new rental house after a really tough search. On paper, it's a massive win. It's super close to Annie's school, it's right by her dad's office, and her dad went through a lot just to get this decent place. But then, you had the downside, which is the view. Annie's bedroom is stuck at the very back of this new house, and right behind their property sits this old, totally abandoned house. Annie isn't usually the type to get spooked easily, but something about this place just immediately unsettles her. She can see it way too clearly from her window. So you've got this stark contrast between the daytime relief of finding a good home and this creeping nighttime dread of what's sitting right past the property line. This perfectly captures the teenage frustration that grounds the whole story. Annie literally begs her mom for a different room. She even suggests her parents take the back room and give her the master bedroom. But her mom is totally stressed by the move and just completely brushes off Annie's complaints. She tells Annie to stop throwing tantrums, to stop focusing on foolish negative things, and just unpack. Annie's very real feelings of unease are instantly shut down as just ungrateful complaining. And man, that friction is so relatable, but in a thriller, it's incredibly dangerous. It means right from day one, Annie's instincts are being totally invalidated by the exact people who are supposed to protect her. Moving right along to Section 2, the face in the window, the terror begins. As the daylight fades and the boxes get unpacked, we see this rigid, almost mechanical escalation of the threat. After a few days of getting used to the room, Annie's fear actually kind of starts to fade. But then, Night 2 happens. At exactly 9 p.m., while trying to sleep, she looks over and sees someone staring at her from the top floor window of that abandoned house. She tries to rationalize it, thinking it's just her imagination. But then, Night 3 rolls around. Again, exactly at 9 p.m., she sees the figure staring right back at her. This pattern builds the dread so perfectly, leading right up to Night 4 at 9 p.m., where the cycle finally breaks and Annie decides to take matters into her own hands. That precision, 9 p.m., night after night, it tells us this isn't random at all. It's totally deliberate. Which brings us to Section 3, a mother's dismissal. Unbelieving parent. Obviously, Annie does what any terrified kid would do. She screams for her mom. But by the time her mom actually looks, the figure is long gone. And get a load of the mother's response here. She tells Annie that at night, even normal things can seem abnormal. She literally blames Annie's fear on watching way too many horror movies. It's essentially textbook gaslighting, even if she doesn't mean to do it. The mother takes Annie's genuine, heart-pounding terror and completely reduces it to an overactive imagination. So instead of comfort, Annie gets a lecture on reality. She's left entirely isolated in her fear. And the dismissal gets even more mundane from there. On the second night of sightings, when Annie screams again, her mom is actually annoyed. She scolds Annie for shouting because she might wake up her sleeping dad. Then she drops the ultimate anchor to boring reality, telling her to sleep because she has school tomorrow. Think about how powerful that is. The threat of a lurking supernatural figure is being completely overwritten by the mundane obligations of the school run and a tired parent. It leaves Annie completely defenseless, forcing her to process this terrifying anomaly through the lens of everyday household rules. All right, Section 4, the Halloween prank theory, a fatal theory. Left with absolutely zero support, Annie's brain desperately searches for a logical explanation. And the crucial point here is how perfectly logical this theory sounds to a stressed-out family. Annie argues that the house is empty, so no one should be at the window. Her mom agrees, and then hands her the fatal theory. It's Halloween time, so neighborhood kids are probably just playing a trick on the new girl. The second her mom says this, you can practically hear the gears turning in Annie's head. She's like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. This entirely rational, highly probable explanation instantly disarms all of Andy's supernatural terror. She's no longer a victim being stalked by the unknown. She's just the target of a silly neighborhood prank. And with that realization, the fear instantly morphs into teenage indignation. Annie decides right then and there that she's gonna catch this little twerp. She isn't terrified anymore, she's annoyed. Her goal isn't survival, it's getting some neighborhood kid in trouble. She literally schemes to find out who it is, march over, report him to his parents, and make sure he gets grounded without Halloween candy. It's such a brilliantly mundane motivation, and it perfectly paves over every single survival instinct she had just a few hours prior. Let's hit Section 5, Trapped in the Dark, Night 4. Let's trace her exact steps as she leaves the safety of our home and crosses the property line into the dark. Step 1, she enters the completely dark house. Now, she arrived feeling pretty brave, but the moment she crosses the threshold, the darkness starts chipping away at that Halloween prank theory, and the fear really begins to creep back in. Step 2, she slowly and carefully climbs the staircase, knowing the prankster has to be up on the top floor. Step 3, she reaches the room, looks around the pitch-black space, and finds it completely empty. There's no neighborhood kid, and then the horrifying realization hits, leading right into Step 4, a frantic sprint back downstairs, only to find the exit has been sealed. But, hold on, let's pause for a second on what happens while she's actually up in that top floor room. She's standing there in the dark. She looks out the very window she had been watching from her own bedroom. And from that vantage point, looking back at her own house, she sees her mom. She cries out, "Mom, I'm here! Mom, I'm here!" It's a uniquely terrifying moment, right? She has literally taken the place of the watcher in the window. The perspective has flipped entirely. Panic completely overtakes her at this point. She runs downstairs to the front door, but it's jammed tight. She tries with all of her strength, but it absolutely will not budge. And the most chilling detail from the source material is this. When Annie arrived at the house, she explicitly stated that she left the front door open. It wasn't blown shut by the wind or anything. It was deliberately closed, and it's been firmly secured from the outside or by something inside. The physical trap has just abruptly and violently snapped shut. As she desperately pulls at this unyielding door, begging for someone to open it, she cries out, "Where am I stuck? Oh God, please help me." It's this lingering, desperate, final plea that just echoes in the dark. And that is exactly where the narrative leaves us, suspended in this abrupt, suffocating cliffhanger, trapped in the pitch black with a terrified girl who just realized how terribly, terribly wrong she was. So looking back at the mechanics of this trap, we really have to ask, what do you think lured her in? Was it just a ghost in the window? Or was it the very human desire to rationalize the terrifying into something manageable? The entity didn't have to drag her out of her bed. It just had to show itself enough times until human nature, frustration, and a mother's logical dismissal did the rest of the work. It's a brilliantly executed psychological snare. I hope this explainer illuminated the hidden layers of this terrifying narrative for you. Maybe think twice before you look out your window tonight. Thanks so much for joining me.